What's up, everyone? It's your boy Norman Rad89 here, continuing our summer camp vibes. As today we are going to be discussing Jason X and also Freddy vs. Jason and Friday the 13th, the remake, talking about the final three films in the Friday the 13th franchise. And yes, these are the last of the franchise, but we do have some news of the Camp Crystal Lake TV show. We did officially get the news of our Jason Voorhees casting, and we got some, footage as well of Pamela Voorhees on the set. So it's a lot of news going on. The A24 show is in the works, so I'm very excited for that. But like I said, today we're going to be discussing these final three films in the franchise. So let's do it. Roll it. It is official for the A24 prequel TV series. We did get the news that Caleb Vincent is going to be our young actor who's going to be playing young Jason Voorhees. There's also some footage floating around online of Linda Cardellini in the outfit. Of course, she's playing our Mama Voorhees, so I'm very excited. Like I said, there's news coming out, and this A24 show is rolling, so I'm hopefully by next summer or next fall, we're going to be getting this show. I'm very excited. But like you said, what you all came here to talk about, let's go on to these movies. So first, we got to discuss Jason X, which would be Kane Hodder's last performance of the legendary character Jason Voorhees. And this is probably my second favorite performance by Kane Hodder as Jason. This is such a fun movie. Jason X is just straight up a popcorn flick. This is not a film that you take seriously or anything like that, because a lot of places, or a lot of fans, when they talk about franchises, horror franchises, they always say they go to space to die. That's what a lot of people say. That was the saying back in the day, but Jason X does really fun, because this is a film that I think the directors and writers, they just understand what kind of movie it is, and even the actors and actresses in it, they understand that it's not to be taken seriously, but the characters, they go for it. They go for broke, and it's campy and silly, and I love it. Like I said, this is probably, comedy-wise, this is probably my second favorite to just laugh at and watch, because there's so many iconic moments in this film. One iconic moment is that we have the legendary David Cronenberg in the beginning of this film getting killed, which is pretty interesting, just to see him in a film. It's like a lot of people don't even recognize it, but yeah, he's in that beginning sequence before Jason Voorhees and the girl get trapped in the cryo room and stuff like that. So just really cool moments like that. The cryogenic freeze kill, like the one where he freezes the girl's face and then crushes her face, really great. The effects of Uber Jason, and when we get to see Jason get his upgrades. So there's just a lot of fun to be had with this movie, and the characters, the one-liners. Like I said, some of the stuff with this film that probably doesn't age well is like the CGI, the graphics, because this was when the 2000s, the graphics, they were kind of really trying to push for the future, but they hadn't really met up. The technology hadn't met what our, creators and writers and all them and the visual effects artists were trying to put on screen. So it is kind of rough in that area, but like I said, there's a lot of fun to be had with this film. And like I said, straight up a popcorn flick, Jason X, and this would be the final one before we get the iconic versus film Freddy vs. Jason, which is one that we had been waiting for decades, a long, long time. So yes, the long-awaited Freddy vs. Jason. This is one that, like, as horror fans, we had been waiting for decades, ever since the 80s, when these guys were just blowing the doors open, even Michael Myers. But like Freddy and Jason, it's always been that thing of just like, who's better, which one would kill the other one, which one has better kills, better movies. That was always part of the horror community, something to talk about. And Freddy vs. Jason, this one holds a special place in my heart, because this came out on my birthday, the year it came out. So this was a fun midnight experience. Me, my mom, my friend, my best friend at the time, we went to go see it. Everybody in the theater, packed house, people dressed up, people talking shit, who's gonna win, who's gonna take the victory. And like I said, it's just one of those key moments in horror that it's just like an iconic time. You're always gonna remember it. It's a straight up experience, and like I said, in terms of theater experiences, one of my favorite to this day. I have it flipped too on this version, because this is actually my favorite version of the poster. I love this one. There is another version. There's one that looks like this, the blue one. There's one that looks like this, that's blue. But then there's one that kind of looks like that, where it's just a black. But for me, I don't know. I never was a fan of like the poster where they're like looking at each other. I was always a bigger fan of this poster. Another one is I always wanted a poster of this where it was just like a straight up like old boxing match, like a 1950s boxing match, but you have Jason on one side and Freddy on the other. That would be a really iconic poster, but that's why I have the flip version to this one, because this is my favorite and I want to scoop up this poster if I can. But to talk more specifically about the movie itself, yes, this is one that that, like I said, I have a lot of rose tinted glasses and nostalgia for, because when you watch it, if I was to put on my critic hat, when I critically watch this movie, and sometimes I have, there are a lot of problems with this movie in terms of what the story is and also the performance of Jason. Like I said, I don't hate Kurt Singer's performance, but just the choices they decide to do creative wise in terms of writing and stuff like that, the way they use the character of Jason. Freddy Krueger only gets like, one kill in this whole movie, and like he does get some cool dream sequences, but there was a lot more that they could have done with this film. And when I'm looking at it from a critic standpoint, it's just one of those films that has a huge potential, but they didn't really meet that. But as a fan, as a lover of these two and a lover of slasher films, and like I said, the, like 11-year-old boy in me that went to go see this, and I was like freaking out, loving the fact that I got to see these two bad boys on screen. I adore this film. There's some really good kills in here. And in terms of the fight sequence, when you get to Jason and Freddy finally getting to fight each other in the real world in the third act, that last 12 minutes, they go for it. It's bloody, it's gory, it's a real fight. And like I said, it's just a straight up like hardcore match put on screen with your two favorite slashers. And I also think it's, I believe it's Monica Keena, I believe, that plays our lead actress in here. I think underrated, very underrated final girl. Now we're on to Friday the 13th, the remake, and one that has probably one of the scariest and most vicious portrayals of a Jason Voorhees. We had Derek Mears in here who played Jason Voorhees, and I think he's iconic. And if they're able to do another movie, or they're going to get another movie off the ground, I would love to see if they could bring Derek back to play the character of Jason Voorhees, because he did a fantastic job in this film. This is one that a lot of people, they have mixed feelings on. I've heard a lot of people say they hate this film. They really dislike this film, and because it's kind of a combination, I've heard people say that they hate it because of this reason, and I'm going to defend it because I love it for this reason. But this is kind of a combination of the first Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th Part 2, and Part 3 kind of mixed together into one movie. So like I said, that's one reason people talk crap about it, but I love it because it gives you the full like origin story of like Jason. It gives you the Pamela Voorhees. It gives you the whole feeling of that with that cool title sequence intro before we get the title card. Then we get the kids who are kind of our false beginning, our false protagonist kids in the beginning. And I think that's really cool because we've never really done that before. And to see all the kids just kind of get slaughtered one by one. And you're like, oh my God, what the and it happens so fast. And then we introduce the new cast of kids, which some people have problems with the second cast of kids. They don't like them as much. Trent and his group and everything, and Daniel Panabaker and Jared Padalecki. Some of those people, they don't really like those characters in the film. But me, like I said, these are just classic Friday the 13th type characters to me. They're people that you love being around. They're funny. They care about each other. But then there's also stupid moments, asshole moments, slutty moments. And like I said, that's all stuff that you go to Friday the 13th movies for. And I actually think the look of this movie, the tone, the way, like the colorization, the color palette, and also the cinematography, really cool. This is a great looking Friday the 13th film, and especially one that I do want to pick up on 4K. Arrow Video did a 4K of this, and I heard it's freaking gorgeous. So like I said, there's a lot to love about this film. Even the score, I think the score and what they did to the Harry Manfredini score to kind of modernize it, they did a really good job. It's kind of a dumbed down, more softer version of the score, but a more melodic version. And I think it's really good. And like I said, this is another good one. I love this poster right here. It really makes the mask look really freaking creepy. So yeah, I love the fact that also we have Sackhead Jason in here. And I like this version. I like the way he looks in this one compared to Friday the 13th Part 2, which was always a big gripe of mine, is the way Jason Voorhees looks in that film. And I think they nail the look in here. They nail the performance. The kills are great. And like I said, it has a fun cast to be around. So that's why this has always been in my really high up there in my top 5 favorite Friday the 13th films, because it just does everything you want a Friday the 13th film to do. It's just modernized. And I think that's why a lot of people didn't like it, because it had updated dialogue, more modern teens with, dialogue that they didn't like. And some people, like I said, they bitch about the fact that there is a different Jason and that it is a combination of the first 3 movies. But me, for all the reasons that people kind of dislike this film, those those are the reasons I like this movie. But thanks for sticking around me all as we discussed the last 3 in the Friday the 13th franchise. Also some news on the A24 prequel series. Please let me know down below in the comment section what are your thoughts on these films and what are your feelings on the Friday the 13th franchise as a whole and during the summer months. Are you binging some Friday the 13th? Are you watching some summer camp movies? Let me know. Shout them out down below. And also, please like the video. Definitely helps out the channel. Subscribe if you're new to the channel and have that notification bell poked so you're notified anytime I drop a video. But most importantly, I want you all to have a safe and happy day. Peace out.